Hey everyone, Helen here. Thanks for painting with me. Today I'm going to show you some really easy techniques to paint this stormy sky landscape. I'll go through the brushes and colours I'm using throughout the video and give you alternatives too, and I'll also put a full list in the description below. I've placed some masking tape just below the halfway mark. I'm going to spray the top part of the canvas with a little bit of water and just brush that in. The first thing I'm going to do is put some white paint along the horizon line. I'm using a large flat brush, but you could also use a filbert brush or something similar. Now I'm going to make a bluey grey colour. You don't have to add the blue if you don't want to, you can just use black and white. We'll put that at either side and then we'll blend it into the white so we've got a lighter section towards the left hand of the canvas. You can use a mop brush or fluffy brush just to blend it a little more. And then I'm going to come in with a really dark grey colour. So again I'm using my cobalt blue and black, and I'm just going to work that down the canvas slightly diagonally, so it'll be a little bit thicker on the right hand side, and then we're going to sweep it down and just dab it on as we're moving to the left. If you don't have cobalt blue, you can use another blue. Ultramarine would work well, or even phthalo blue. Now I'm going to make sort of a mid-grey colour, so I've added a little more white, and we're going to bring that in just over the top above the dark grey. I've washed my brush, and then I'm going to come in with white paint above the grey. Just dab all of that on. And then we can come in with the soft fluffy brush. I'm using a mop brush, and I'm just going to ever so gently glide the brush across the top of the canvas and smudge those colours together. If you don't have a mop brush or a fluffy brush, you could also try a little piece of a sponge or something like that. That would work just as well, and it would still soften and blend it nicely. You can sweep the brush around, you can twist it or dab on the canvas, and you can get lots of different effects this way. All we're going for is just a little bit of soft blending to make it look like a stormy sky. If you get too much paint on your brush, you can keep wiping it off. You can even clean your brush, just make sure it's nice and dry before you go back onto the canvas. You can add darker colours, so I'm putting in a little bit more black now. You can add more white if you need to. And it really just is a case of dabbing that brush on, swirling the paint around until you get a nice effect that you're happy with. It doesn't have to be perfect though. We can always come back in when the paint's dry and we can work on it a little more. Now I'm going to make my dark grey again, and I'm going to put that in the top left hand corner. Just work it into the canvas. A few little rough edges. And then I've got my mop brush again, or you can use a sponge, and we'll just dab that in and make it look like those storm clouds are rolling in over the top. We can remove the masking tape, and then we'll start to work on the golden fields on the bottom of the canvas. So I've moved the masking tape up a little bit just to keep that horizon line nice and straight. I've got my Naples yellow and burnt sienna. I'm using a flat sort of hog hair brush, so it's quite a firm bristle brush. I've added a little white and black to my Naples yellow. I'm just going to start dabbing that on in the distance. If you don't have a flat coarse haired brush, a fan brush would work really well. You'll get a very similar effect. Just dab it on. You can do some darker areas and shadows by adding a little bit of black to the paint. And then when we get to the end and we've made sort of a triangle shape, I'm going to start pulling the brush downwards to give us the edge of the grass or hay that's standing up. I'll add another little bit of shadow. And we'll do this bottom corner as well. And now we can start to think about where we'd like to place the path or the track that's going through the field. I'm going to make it narrower at its furthest away point, and then the path will gradually widen out as it gets closer to us. We'll paint it in and block it in with our Naples yellow, but this time I've added a little more burnt sienna and a little more black to make it darker. And while I've got this colour on the brush, I'm going to sweep it upwards where the side of the hay and grass is going to be, coming up from the edge of the path. So just straight up. Start getting those dark shadows in. Add a little black to it as well. Again, a fan brush would work for this if you don't have a flat brush like mine. Soften that out a little bit. And now we can start putting in our trees. I'm using a medium round brush. Again, you could use a filbert if you have one instead, or a small round brush. I'm going to do 3 tree trunks, all just sweeping down. And for the finer branches, I've switched to a liner brush or a rigger. If you don't have one of these, you can use a small round brush. And we'll just put in a few thinner lines. I've made a light grey colour with white and black. And since these are going to be birch trees, I'm going to start adding a few white lines going along, just to give a nice pattern on the trees. For the leaves on the trees, there's a few brushes that you can try. I'll show you the different effects you can get with each brush as we paint our trees. I'm going to use sap green, but you could use any green that you like, or you could even mix some of your cobalt blue with yellow to get a nice green colour. I'll start with my flat hog brush that I used for the grass. Just dab that paint in to the end of the bristles, and then all we're going to do is dab that on. Use the edge of the brush and sometimes the corner as well, just to get nice little points on the tree. So you get a nice sort of wispy edge to the tree with this one, and it blocks it in quite well. Sort of twisting the brush around to get that nice droop in the branches. The other brush you could try if you have it is a round brush, and this is a firm bristled round brush. So we're going to get more individual little leaves and branches with this, a little more detail. And you can just again slowly dab that on and create some shapes of the tree branches drooping downwards. You'll get a similar effect with a filbert brush. It's got that nice curved edge. So again, just dabbing that paint on, bringing it down. I've lightened the paint up a little bit now with some Naples yellow, and we can start adding in some highlights. So you can use one of these brushes or a mix of all 3 depending on what you have. And just slowly build up the tree shape, and then we'll add in our lighter highlights. You could even use the side of your filbert brush as well, that'll give you a nice effect. And then right at the end I'm going to come in with my small round brush. I've added a little white to my light green paint to make it even lighter. I'm just going to start putting a few little details and some extra bright highlights on the edges of the tree branches. We can add in those little thin branches that we might have covered with the green, just a few peeking out. So I've got my liner brush again for that. And now we can start doing a little bit of work on the path. So I've got my black with a little bit of burnt sienna. I'm using a medium filbert brush, but again you could use a round brush or a flat brush. And we'll just start adding a little bit of shadow at the edge of the path, working our way into the distance. Put that shadow on the left. We'll put a few shadows and darker spots under the trees as well. And while that's drying, we can come back in and finish off any areas that we need to change on our sky. So I'm going to dry brush in a little bit of titanium white, just where I think it'll be nice to have some light coming down beneath those storm clouds. And this is when you can soften any areas that you want to, and you can blend any white parts out and turn them into more of a fluffy cloud effect. We can start adding a little bit of detail on the path, and what we're trying to achieve is where the hay has been trampled down by the track. So I've got my medium round brush. I'm just going to start adding a little bit of detail. And then I'm coming in with my liner brush again, and it's really just lots of lines to give the indication of the hay or grass standing up, and some of it lying down on the track where it's been flattened. I've added a little bit of white to the Naples yellow to get some nice light ones right at the front. A few on the path, and we're all finished. I hope you've enjoyed the video today. If you have, I'd love it if you hit the like button for me. It really does help me grow the channel. I'll see you next time.